Hi, I'm Jackie Miller, high conflict divorce coach and consultant, and your host of this podcast, Out of Crazytown, your guide to divorcing a narcissist. Today, I have guest Christina, who is here to share her story of survival from narcissistic abuse and the courage it took to leave her marriage. Christina discusses how easy it is to lose yourself in these controlling relationships and gives us hope that in a life absent of your abuser, you will not only rediscover yourself, but find a version that is stronger, smarter, and more resilient than you ever thought possible. Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today, Out of Crazytown, your guide to divorcing a narcissist. There are so many folks out there that are enduring high conflict divorces and they're scared and feel alone. And so you being brave and come on and telling your story is just so helpful for others to let them feel they're not alone. So welcome.
Thank you, Jackie, so much.
I wanted to just sort of kind of launch into some questions for you about your journey and what your relationship was like, your marriage was like, the divorce, et cetera, and just sort of give some people some background. So how did you and your ex-husband first meet?
Well, I was quite young, so I was early 20s, and we sort of just met through friends in the city that we were living in at the time. And he was 13 years older than me. So, it really becomes clear that when you're in your early 20s, you really don't know yourself and you're not, clear on who you are and what you're kind of willing to put up with or even recognizing red flags. So we met, and it was sort of out of the gate, it was a great relationship. We started spending a ton of time together, and we're together, all the time pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know what, that's a good point. So I want to point something out right away. This goes with being young, but it also it goes with personality types. And when basically like a narcissist or someone with narcissist personality disorder is looking for that perfect mate, it's someone who doesn't have a lot of boundaries. When we're young, not everyone, but there are a lot of us that were out there that just didn't have our boundaries in place, and they love that.
Absolutely. Well, and I think you're just forming your boundaries, right? So even though I was strong and I was independent and had been on my own for, quite a few years, you're still very new to, recognizing red flags or what kind of partner you want in life. Those things haven't been really solidified yet. So, someone like these types of personalities, they feed on that because they know they can come in and act like they're your ally and then kind of take over and steer the boat and really control the whole situation without even realizing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I wanted to talk more about, like you said, the beginning of the relationship, everything was so perfect. And yes, beginning of relationships when you are in love, are perfect. That's, why you continue on with this person. But there tends to be a lot of love bombing and an intense beginning. Did you experience that?
1,000%. Yes. So very much like I was his best friend. I was his, only kind of one person he wanted to spend all the time with outside of working. It was kind of, I was put on a pedestal, and, he really, in a world where you've maybe had past boyfriends or you have girlfriends that have boyfriends that are cheaters and they're kind of out with their buddies and they're kind of hard to track down. He was the exact opposite. It's like you said, love bombing is a good word for that, because he just came in hard. And it was just kind of all encompassing. And it makes you feel initially like, wow, this person really wants to be with you. And he's such a good partner. And, he just wants to be with you all the time. But the reality is that's how they kind of set the stage for their takeover. I call it, I used to call it, it's like a mini cult, that's how they set the stage to get you into a place where they can start to brainwash and kind of convince and manipulate the situation around you, because you feel like you're like in the inner circle.
Absolutely. And with that, then the isolation usually begins.
Yep.
And so what was that experience like for you?
We were together for a few years. Then I got pregnant. And once I was pregnant and once we moved to a sort of a different area of the city, I was much more isolated. We knew some people, we had some friends that were sort of his. I made some friends sort of through having a baby and those kinds of things. But the reality was I was taken out of where I was sort of comfortable. So the isolation definitely started with the first baby, and kind of continued from there, because at that point, then now I'm sort of under his control. I'm no longer working. I'm pregnant and then have a child, and I'm still very young, and you're just not sure of yourself. And now suddenly I'm overnight living in his world,
Yeah.
his reign with, his employers and, people he has working at the house, or, his sort of his little regime, right? I'm,
Yeah.
I'm an employee of it. It feels like,
Right, right.
so,
That's
and
so well said. Like you're in his world now, and it just happens gradually and you don't realize what's happening. And did he change a lot after the first baby?
I don't know if he changed a lot.
Okay.
I think that really who he was just came out stronger because he just felt like now he had a real lock on things. I think the tendencies were already there. The personality traits, the narcissistic behavior was already there. It just came out full force because then what happened was it's not just me he's controlling. Now he's controlling, our child, because it's like he wants to control the names. He wants to control what's going to happen, all those kind of early decisions that you make as a couple when you have a new baby,
Hmm.
or even when you're pregnant and you're going to have a new baby, he essentially was making, along with, our wedding and when that date would be and who would come and who would attend, and all of those things become his decisions.
Mm.
So I think that it was always in him. It just goes twofold at that point because he really has me in a position where he no longer really has to play that he is going to give me a voice.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to play that game anymore.
And when did you start to just sort of be like, oh no, this isn't normal, or this is feeling really oppressive? Like, when did that just start to dawn on you?
I think it was around, after I had the baby. When I was pregnant, that's a very overwhelming experience for someone who's sort of young and not necessarily ready for it. So I was sort of pretty much focused on other things at the time. There wasn't control on my everyday activities or even my spending. So it gives you the illusion that you are living a very comfortable life and you
Yeah.
have lots of freedoms. And you're so lucky because other people would die for this position and this, kind of relationship or this lifestyle. So you start to realize that after you have the baby and you start to try to, get back to yourself and find your way being a young mom and kind of, connect back with who you are, that he doesn't want that. And I think that's for me when I started to feel like I couldn't really breathe. My first son was 3 or 4 months, and he wanted to have another baby right away. There wasn't a consideration of, are you ready? Do you want a baby? It was this pressure. So I felt extreme anxiety. I had a lot of nights where I'd have to take, Ativan or Xanax because to battle that anxiety of knowing I wasn't in a place where I felt content and secure, yet I was there and I was
Yeah.
locked in, and there was this pressure to have another baby, and because that was the timeline he wanted. And I think that's when it really hit home, was there wasn't really any room for my opinions, even though I have a lot of great things to bring to the table. They were never considered, and they were never wanted,
Yeah.
those. So you start to fade into the distance, and you don't feel like you bring anything to the table because you're not allowed to. So then you start to feel kind of lost, and you just kind of, go forward on that basis. And so that's when it really started to hit with me was, well, what am I bringing to the situation here, and why can't I bring more things? Why can't I have a
Right.
voice? Why can't I, go back to work or do something that would build up me, just me?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not an option.
You feel like just a fixture in their life, and
Absolutely. I
you're
used to say I was a doll in his dollhouse. If you looked from the outside in, it would look like, oh, please don't complain. It looked like a great, perfect life from the outside, but you really feel like a doll in someone else's, dollhouse, and they control the entire house and and all the, little pieces that come and go. I really didn't own my life, and within that, you also lose yourself so quickly. And I think that's what women don't understand when they have this idea that they want to get married and not work, and I want someone to take care of me. I'm like, worst plan. Like, that's how you lose yourself so fast, and then combine that with having children. Boom, you're done, and then you're so lost and you're so confused. It's just so much easier for someone to take control of the entire situation.
you give away all your control. Usually you're chosen for specific characteristics about you, about your personality, about how you look, to
Yep.
be that doll in their dollhouse. You fit the bill so that you can just be put on a shelf, be
Yep.
told when you can come down.
Yep.
We can go back, and then then there's varying levels of abuse within that. But so leading up to the divorce, what were the things that started? What were the straws that broke the camel's back?
I think it was then having a second child and really starting to feel smothered, kind of, really feeling a voice. I don't know kind of who I am anymore. there was a lot of everyday things that sort of just start to weigh on you, and you kind of collect, and you sort of feel that way. You just feel unhappy, kind of confused. You're just living in a world where they make all the decisions all the time. It's interesting because you say, you're picked for your type of personality and those types of things. And I truly think a lot of these types of partners that are so narcissistic, they actually don't want someone that's super submissive out of the gate. They want someone that gives you the illusion that they're super strong and independent and interesting and accomplished, and they're very dynamic and eclectic. They want all those qualities.
Yeah.
But then they take them and they beat you down enough that they can manipulate it to where they have full control of you. But to the public eye, you still exude all of those qualities.
Yeah. Yeah. You make them look good. I always say they pick people that make them acceptable to society.
1,000%, 1,000%. And people really felt like I was sort of the better half because I was much more, friendly and charming and all of these things. But in reality, I barely could keep my head above water living in that kind of regime. It was truly what I say was, a cult-like situation. There wasn't a lot of members of that cult, but it was a cult-like, situation where you don't have, not only do you not have a voice, but you lose your voice so much that you feel that your voice doesn't matter, so you don't speak up.
Yeah.
So I think for me, leading up to the divorce, it was all of those things. And then I had a dog. I had a couple dogs, and one of my dogs passed away, and it was very tragic and very sudden. And I think what happened was it really ripped off that superficial layer that's kind of keeping everything contained.
Mm-hmm.
And I just spun out of control and realized, the one thing that I had that was sort of mine that I came to this situation with was gone. And I was left with, yes, we have kids, but those are our kids. They're not mine. And because I lost so much of myself and then lost, my dog, which was initially my dog, I really think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because it pushed me so far emotionally to a place where I was like, I don't like anything about this. I can't live here anymore. I didn't have the answers. I didn't know how it was all going to work out. I didn't even know how I was going to untangle myself from it. Mm-hmm. But I just remember feeling immense anger towards him, even though it wasn't his fault that my dog passed away. It was immense anger towards him that everything I had in my life was.
Yeah, well, that is so profound, because think about that. Yes, what that dog represented was the last part of you. Yeah. That was just yours.
Yep.
And so it's so hard to lose a pet anyway that you've had and you've cared for so long. But when it holds that much, it's a symbol of, you're the last bit of your freedom, or the last bit of who you were, and, just when you were you. I could see how that would just put you over the edge. Like, oh my gosh, now what do I have?
Absolutely. Because and with a lot of these situations, you even know when he met me, I had my own place and a great spot and a great, career. And and for being so young, I had things together. When I really came into his world, I was, one of the first things kind of that he said was, I don't need any of your stuff to, just basically bring yourself, bring your dog, bring your clothes. Yeah. And so when you come into that situation and you're really under their regime and everything is theirs, mm-hmm. And everything is done the way they want it done, to lose my dog was really just, it just pushed me so far to that edge that I couldn't turn back, because I knew then that I had to get out then, or else it would never really happen. I was young enough that I knew I could find my way again.
Yeah.
And no matter what age you are, it's difficult to find your way. But I knew that if it was more years and more years of the control, it would be even harder to untangle.
It is. It's so hard to leave, and it's terrifying. And that's why I do this podcast. And again, I'm so grateful for you coming on and talking about it, because the loneliness and the fear that overtakes you, and like, how is this going to turn out? I don't understand how this is, how I'm, like you said, I'm going to untangle, but something deep inside of me is telling me to run.
That's right. And good at telling you that you have no options. They're really good at making sure that you feel that you really don't have options, and the way that you feel is really crazy, and that you are, insane for, not being happy. And, they really do a good job at making you feel like you are the crazy person in the situation. And that if you were to leave, that's it. It's downhill for you all from here,
which
for that.
Yes, and that brings me to my next question. So, how did it go down? Was it you that filed? And then getting into what we now sort of my colleagues and I, one of our colleagues has coined post-separation abuse. So it's the whole, pardon my French, shit show that occurs once the divorce starts. So was it you that filed, or how did that happen?
It was after my dog passed away. It was clear that, I wanted some kind of separation. Of course, in typical fashion, he took control of the situation and he was like, "Oh yeah, you can move out, you can get a place, you can do this, you can do that." Again, kind of taking the control of things, not ever, looking to have a conversation, or level the playing field and just kind of find out what the best plan is. We separated for a while. There was a lot of shenanigans that went on with documents, and right out of the gate there was lots of idle threats of not hiring lawyers, that there would be bankruptcy claimed. So right out of the gate, and I was a pretty good disciple at that point. I was very much still, drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
So I really kind of listened. I was like, okay, and he played Mr. Nice Guy. If you do this and that, I'll give you this. If you hire a lawyer, or you date any of my friends, or you do anything like this, you won't get anything. And I sort of at that point was very much still, okay, I'm going to play by the rules and, listen to him. So I got out and, got my own place. But as soon as I sort of started to feel like I basically got out of jail, was how I felt, gaining my independence and my common sense almost back, just that, intuition that you lose so much. Once I started getting that back, I was not such a good disciple anymore. So I didn't listen all the time. So
Yeah.
it started with the threat. So definitely the abuse started then when I was going to do these things for you. I was going to do X for you, but now you did this, you're not getting that. And
It's your fault.
it's your fault. And, you don't really need the kids half the time because you want to go live your life. What? Like, when did I say that? So I think that, I think a lot of that stuff that really started early on, probably 6 months out, 7 months out, because once I was free of it, I started to really reconnect with who I was. And that's when he started to have to put on the pressure to try to yank back the control.
Yeah, he cannot have you out there thinking for yourself. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and making decisions for yourself.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad you highlighted that, because I hear so often from clients the same story. The beginning starts the same. Oh, okay, you want a divorce, or you start to have the conversation. Maybe things aren't going so well, and a lot of them will be like, "It's another opportunity to take the reins." And don't hire a lawyer, because let's all acknowledge that would be you standing up for yourself and somebody else giving you sound advice, and they know it's not going to be advice that behooves them. So don't get an attorney. I'll be fair. I'll give you this. I'll give you that. And deep down what they're capable of. So you're thinking, okay, maybe this will turn out okay. Maybe I can get away and it'll be all right, and I'll have enough money and I won't have to go through those nightmare divorces I hear about. And you're so hopeful. And you just can't wait to get into that apartment, or just get away and just be alone. So
you're willing just to take like little scraps of anything, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Thank you so much. And like, okay, fine, I'll get my own apartment. You're okay. And you're so willing to like accept the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Because that's really what you've been brainwashed to believe, that you're so lucky to be in this situation. Now you are so crazy to leave it. Well, you're only going to get the bare minimum because you're so insane to leave the situation. Yeah. So here, we'll give you a few little, peanuts.
Yeah.
And you should be happy with that. And you really believe that until you get into the real world and you start absorbing what you've been sheltered from for so long. And you're like, wait a second, this doesn't feel right. And the other thing they like to do is that, they want to make sure that not only do you not hire a lawyer, but don't listen to other people, and other people don't know this, and other people know this, and everyone else is, these, they're the enemies, and other women don't listen to them. They don't know what they're doing. They wasted money on attorneys, et cetera, et cetera. It's unending. It's a constant battle of, you're not smart. Don't listen to other people. I'm going to take care of you.
Yeah.
And, even to this day, there's still comments to me of how I wasn't smart, that I hired an attorney who did an amazing job. And he went through 3 different attorneys. And I know that he had told other people, hey, if you ever get divorced, hire, this person who I used. But yet to my face, he'll continue to say how stupid I was to hire that person. So it's interesting that even now, quite a long time out, there's still that effort to try and break me down for my decisions and bully me for my strength and my independence and all the decisions I made along the way, still try to make you feel shitty about it somehow, right? Yeah. Somehow, because any wins for you are losses for them. So right. They need to try to dismantle your wins in any way.
And that's just it. It's black and white. Either I won or I lost. There is no in between. And that's what happens. The black and white thinking that they've had all along. But yeah, it's just even magnified during the divorce process. And so like, when did things start to get really crazy in your divorce?
I signed a bunch of separation agreements and documents without a lawyer, as he told me to do, and kind of went on my own and got my, own place and started to have some sort of freedom, and told me he was, going to give the kids to me 50% of the time. And then of course, once I was out, that was not really happening. And, so there was a lot of fighting about that. He controlled the entire schedule. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, so it was kind of a couple steps that were happening as they were going on. He was just like, nope, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. And then what happened was, he had told me that he was going to, here's just a small amount of money, but down the road, I can help you buy a house or build your house or do something, right? One day he was like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. So I remember thinking, this is just crazy. Like, he just thinks he can just, because I'm not being this perfect little disciple, he's like punishing me like I'm like a child, And so I remember thinking to myself, I need to speak to a lawyer. I knew that a lot of the documents that I signed were shady. There was some stuff that went on with dates and, changing dates and kind of a lot of smoke and mirrors. As they do, right? They kind of always create whatever narrative they want to create, they create out of thin air.
Yeah.
Thin air. This is the narrative. And you're like, what?
Yes.
So it got really bad when I remember like it was yesterday, feeling so nervous to go see a lawyer. Nervous, like literally physically not well, driving there, parking.
Oh yeah.
I'm basically like,
it's an act of defiance.
Like, I mean, I'm literally like,
and you're terrified.
Yeah. Like, just felt sick to my stomach the entire time. And I remember the attorney saying to me, reviewing all the documents, and she said to me, I'm really surprised that you signed these things, because not only are they extremely unfair and ridiculous and fraudulent, you clearly are smart. You're not a dumb person. You're not, head in the clouds, and you're articulate. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize, is that they really do get you and mess with your ability to think clearly.
Yeah.
And so even though I knew that wasn't a good idea to sign those kinds of things, and that didn't make sense, and it didn't seem fair, and it didn't seem transparent, I did it anyways. And so I think when she said that to me, that was again another sort of a line drawn in the sand, where I was like, there's enough of this, like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And she said, you just have to, this is going to be a big fight. It's going to be very difficult. He's going to come after you, and you're going to have to stand behind your attorney, and you're going to have to be strong. And that's essentially, and I will say, and I say to this day, that, on many levels, I would be a strong person regardless of him, but I am 100 times stronger because of him.
Yep.
And every time I had a small win or a large win or any kind of anything, just even managed him, it's made me stronger in all ways out in the world. And, he really felt that he would be able to threaten me enough and it make me feel scared enough that he would have ultimate control, like he does with other people in his life.
Yeah.
Whether they're in his life or out of his life. But he didn't do that. He couldn't do that with me. He couldn't hang on to the control with me. And that has resulted in many positive things in my life, being able to go out and really take on anything. Because when you are able to come through a situation like this, what can't you manage? What can't you take on in life, right? When you have somebody, constantly attacking you, an act of war on Monday to Sunday.
Right. I always tell people, like, once you physically can get away from them a little bit, every single day that goes by, it's like your brain starts to heal. And literally, that's actually physiologically true, because you have been living in fight or flight for so long. And literally the hormones and the chemicals that your brain and body has been emitting have kept you in a state where you can't completely have thought, go through a full thought process, or, you're signing things out of fear, like you said, not out of common sense. So once you can sort of separate yourself and start to think for yourself and have the mental space to think for yourself, things just really do start to come together. And I usually ask guests this at the end of the podcast, but let's talk about this now. It's like, what do you have to look forward to when you get to the other side of this? I can just tell everyone out there that's in the fetal position right now, you will be stronger because of it. And you will not believe the things you will be capable of doing in a positive way for you, for yourself, and for your future because of what you will be going through.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, you're in such a lost space and you feel like that's going to be forever. But I will say that, you'll look back and you won't believe. I mean, I look back and think I couldn't even pick a paint color for myself when I first moved out. I remember thinking I felt a need. I wanted to change the color of my walls. I felt an overwhelming need to call him, even though we're not even, we're in war, and ask him what color he used on the walls, because I didn't feel confident enough in myself to make that decision, because I was so lost in who I was. Wasn't tapped into what I liked and what made sense to me. And because that was one of the things he always used to say, well, you don't really know, and you don't really know your style, and you don't really know this, and you don't really know that. And, after a while of someone telling you that, you believe it. You believe that you don't really know as much as everyone else around you knows, so you should just be quiet.
The constant underlying message is you're just not smart enough. You just don't have the right. You just don't. And it's just constant.
And after a while, it sets in, right? And you start to believe it. So when you leave that and you're in that fetal position, and then you start to come out of it slowly, and it's a hard space to be in, and you have to fight through it. But when you start to come through it and you have a few little breakthroughs, you literally, you're shook on how could you have been so, like, I remember thinking, how did I not pick outfits for myself? Like, when I tell people this today, they're like, oh, so that's funny. You were in a controlling relationship. They think it's a joke. They're like, well, how is that even possible?
Because you're such a strong, intelligent, independent, fun, charismatic, like successful woman. And it is mind-boggling to people. Yes.
Yes. It really, whether it's guys I've dated or guy friends or girlfriends or whoever, people are like, huh? Like, it's hard to imagine me being in that position. And that's the thing, is that when you're in it, you feel like that's, you feel extremely lost. And to anybody who's in that position right now, it's only a matter of time. It's every day you just have to get up and kind of focus on doing things that, make sense to you, that are good for you, that are good for your soul, good for your mind. And every step in the right direction will get you there. And you'll be there without even realizing you'll be there. And suddenly there'll be this like whole new world, a new chapter, a new person that you'll be, who really you always were, but just it was beat out of you for a while, right? It was just manipulated out of you. So it's really no different than being in a physically abusive situation.
No.
But the physically abusive situation, you have bruises, you have cuts, you have physical things that you can be reminded of. Whereas when it's a mentally and emotionally abusive situation, you forget. Because you can't take a photo of it. Oh, this is what happened. This is what he did to me.
Right.
There's
no physical evidence, like you said, to show people. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but this is why I want to tell people that if you are with an attorney, or if you are with a therapist, or even friends in your circle that are sort of looking at you and not getting that the physical or the emotional abuse and the mental abuse,
right?
Very intelligent women
or other people will say it's not that bad, or no, really, just maybe listen to what he has to say, because they don't understand what you're dealing with. If you haven't dealt with this, that you can't take advice from people who don't know what you're dealing with.
No,
unless
you can't.
They do something similar, do not take advice from them, because they'll literally sell you down the river. They don't necessarily mean to. They just have no flipping idea what you're dealing with. I mean, I have so many friends of mine say to me, "Oh, but he's good looking. He seems like a good dad." I mean, they would literally say those things, and then like a year later, they were like, "Oh my God, what a nightmare!" But because on the surface, and also they're very good at having a decent public perception, right?
Oh, for sure.
It's different if they were physically abusive, then they could be the guy that's an asshole and yelling and abusive and maybe grab you by the hair or do something that would allow the public to see what you're battling.
Yeah.
So you feel vindicated. But in these scenarios, it's hidden. It's all smoke and mirrors and layered and manipulation, and
Yeah.
you don't see that. So on the outside, they're like, really? Like, he seems good looking. He dresses well. He makes money. I mean, what do you really want in your life? Like,
Yeah.
that's what they see,
Right.
and
Right.
that's all orchestrated, by the way. Every single piece is orchestrated. Like, I used to say, people used to say, oh, your ring's so beautiful. But really what I realized is my ring was really a reflection of him.
Yeah.
Ring was a reflection of who he was and how much money he could spend and what he did. And
Right.
so everything really in his life, including me, was a reflection of him. It wasn't like we were a team together, and he wanted my input. It was really, I was another piece in the larger puzzle of wanting to build his image.
And thank you for that example, because I like to often pause and say, could we just talk about what healthy would look like? So a big ring on your finger would be a husband who is like, I love you. I care about you so much. I want everyone to know, not that you're mine because it's ownership, but that we're together and I'm the luckiest man in the world to have this beautiful, intelligent wife. And, which ring do you want, honey? Which ring do you like? That's what healthy looks like. The ring on your finger when you're married to someone like your ex is ownership. Look how much money I make. Look at my, beautiful doll, my doll in my dollhouse. And yeah, look at the ring that I can afford to put on my doll's finger. And yeah,
exactly. And I remember when a couple of years out from my divorce, I had gone back to work, and I was dealing with some clients, and I remember they were like a young couple, young married. I think they maybe just had a baby. Watching them speak about their decisions about this house and what they were going to do, the way they were speaking to each other, and the way that he was deferring to her and being like, well, I want you to be like, there was just this overwhelming vibe of they were partners in life, right? It wasn't his life and his control, and she was just in it, and lucky her. They were partners in it. And I remember it really hitting me hard, because I was like, that's something I never had. I never had that. I never had, my voice never mattered. He made the decision. And I think that regardless of age difference or any of those things, when somebody takes over that role all the time and your voice doesn't matter, that's where it's going to lead you. I mean, and you're going to lose your voice no matter what. You're going to lose who you are. It's just going to be what happens, right?
Yeah.
And that, like you said, a healthy relationship is not that.
That's interesting, because I think that it's like, and you want to look forward to calling your partner and telling them about things and whatnot. But in those kind of controlling marriages, I often hear clients say, like, I constantly contacted him or called him throughout the day, and it made it sound like I'm this anyway. It was like for permission, and like I needed to let him know what was going on throughout the day, and I didn't want any surprises when he got home, so that there were fist slamming on the counter and like questioning and like, why'd you go to that grocery store today? And so I would literally contact him all throughout the day just to get his input and get his approval, or like you said, make sure the paint color I picked out was okay, because not only do you not feel confident in picking out the paint color, there's also this fear like I might be in trouble when he gets home.
Oh my God, I can't even I remember standing in a store. I was there to pick up some towels, and I was sweating. Like, what soap dish should I pick? What would he, if he was here, what would he pick? What if he was here? Well, what do I want? There was none of that thought process for me. It was not, what do I want to do? And I have an ability and I have good taste and I can pick this. It was, what would he want? And I'm sitting there, and then I start taking photos and then sending it to him. He used to say, you're not running the household, you're not making decisions, but how do you make decisions? How do you run a household when everything's stripped away from you?
Yeah.
When all that confidence and that connection to your inner self and who you are is beat down. You can't make decisions because you don't have any confidence in yourself.
No,
you don't have any clarity.
It's a vicious cycle, and which is exactly where they want you. So beat you down. You can't make any decisions. You're afraid to, for fear of not making the right decision. And then they come back with, what is wrong with you? You can't do anything. You can't run a house. You can't raise the kids. You can't, like, God, like, and you're so lucky to live in this house and live this life. And like, and then how dare you complain? Or, when it's not a complaint, maybe you're just asking for, you could ask for the most basic things and it's a complaint, right?
Exactly.
And, I was going to ask you, like, what were your craziest stories, which you're welcome to share. But I honestly think the soap dish is so profound, Christina, because that is it. Just you just gave me the chills and almost tears come to my eyes, because you're absolutely right. This, again, going back to this extremely intelligent, I know that you're very successful in what you do, strong woman who used to have this very independent life, and you had your own place and your own stuff and your great career, and now you're in an aisle at a store questioning what soap dish, and you're sweating over it. And it's like, let's just contrast those two things and take the magnitude and how profound that story is, because that's just so well said. And thank you for sharing that. We can go on and on about the super crazy stories that happen in divorces, and there are, and I know you have them.
That's the thing. A lot of people can have crazy stories. A lot of people have bad relationships and they're very toxic, and both people can be very, aggressive. There can be fighting. Let's call the cops. Those stories are easier to understand because it's like X, Y, and Z happened. Mm-hmm. But to explain that I'm so lost and I'm standing there and I can't make a decision on a soap dish, it's not sensationalized. Like it's not like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a horrible scenario.
Right.
It's not glamorized the same way as, I had to call the police on my husband 17 times, or he's a drunk and he comes home, he's sleeping on the grass, or, everyone, there's lots of scenarios that are super difficult and super toxic, but some of them are easier. They're easy to see. They're easy to.
They're almost socially acceptable stories.
Absolutely.
That explain the abuse.
Exactly. Oh, that's horrible. Thank God you got out of that situation. But when I first left, people were like, "What are you doing?" People don't understand that it's worse than that. It's so mentally and emotionally abusive to a degree that if you don't get out in time, you are not going to be able to recover, because it's not a bruise that can heal. It's so damaging to your soul, to everything, right? So they get in like a little virus and they kind of just go to work.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and again, just letting people out there know that there is a community of people. We are here to help. We understand what you're going through. We understand the tiniest detail, the most subtle comments or put downs, and the severity of the damage that it's doing and the control that you're under. And so I just, because I know that there's so many people out there going, everyone thinks that I'm crazy, if I leave. And how, like you said, are you going to untangle this? And am I strong enough to do it? How am I going to live when I get out? And you can do it. They picked you because you're strong. They picked you because you're smart. Yep. They need you.
Yep.
You don't need them.
Exactly. And just remember that the more they tell you how you're not smart and you are stupid, and if you leave, this is going to happen and that going to happen. Remember that every time they say that, it's because they're more and more nervous and they're getting scared, and they're going to try to sell you on a story. And the more that story becomes more elaborate and there's more threats, you're getting warmer.
Yep.
You're getting closer to finding that independence, and you're getting closer to winning that game, and they know it. And so the bigger the threats, the more that you're making them nervous. So
right. And specifically, and I think I know what you're saying, specifically in the context of divorce, because when things start getting really heated and they start blowing up and you're like, oh my gosh, where's this going? What are they capable of doing to me? You're absolutely right. Just try to console yourself knowing you're making the right moves. The more out of control they get, you're winning.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like it.
Doesn't feel like it, but you're making small wins that it's going to be detrimental to their program. And that's why they're so hard to stop you. They're trying so the harder they try, know that you are on the right path. You are on the right journey. So, because if they're not trying hard, you're not doing things right.
As a high conflict divorce coach and consultant, I can tell you I am here because I always say I'm the person I wish that I had in my divorce, because I know how horrible and difficult it is. And I needed someone to understand all these, all, like I said, the subtle nuances of the abuse in marriages. And anyway, I again want to really thank you for coming on, Christina, and sharing your story. It's been.
I wish I had someone like you back then. I would have been able to accomplish what ultimately took me years. I would have been able to do in a much shorter time if I had that support system. It just didn't exist, not in a way that I could find it to actually physically have, okay, I need you in my life. I couldn't find it as a friend. I couldn't find it in family. You're not going to find it like that. You really need to find it in somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if that existed back then, things would have been a lot different. It was a really long, hard road. So, when somebody has that opportunity, I just think it's amazing what you're doing. That is the best thing that you could do for yourself, is
Thank
to have
you.
that support system to keep you on track and clear. And because there'll be some days where you just want to give up the entire fight.
So
Yeah.
true. Thank you again. I so appreciate you being here. Thanks again, Christina.
Okay. Bye
Take
bye.
care. Bye-bye.